the meeting to order of our November 2022 with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, I think it is. Rick or Tom, can I have one of you brave men come here for a minute, please?
What's
Excuse me while I vacate.
Can somebody get that? I need to get out of the way here. It's a snake.
What is it?
It's a snake.
I think it's a snake. That's what you wanted Bill for, man. I'll take care of Bill.
Is it real or alive? Or real or dead?
Is there there's a snake in the meeting?
I wanted that one.
All right.
Snake in a trap. Where? In a little trap. Really? They get it? Yeah, it's up there. All right.
Nice. That's a first. That's a first.
Oh my God, okay. I'm sorry, I do not like snakes, so I'm terribly sorry about that. All right, let's do a roll call here. In person, we have Bob Cooney, Mark Donovan, Martha Majeski, Laurie Getz, Bill Brennan, Paul Bettinger, and on the telephone we have Danielle Joanne and Susan Garrett, and Susan Garrett will be joining us in person shortly. Oh gosh.
I'm sweating now. Yeah.
I know, I am too. I'm so sorry. Oh goodness. We did have an executive session on November 2nd, which is today before our meeting, where we discussed potential property acquisition. And we also had an executive session last Thursday. What was that date? October 27th, where we also discussed potential property acquisition. Now, moving on to our regular business meeting. Our consent agenda. Acceptance of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors, October 5th, 2022 business meeting, and the October 13th, 2022 special budget meeting. All departmental, committee, commission, and council reports as posted and received by the Board of Supervisors for the month of October 2022. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, got everybody. That's awesome. Treasurer's report and payment of bills for the period ending October 31st, 2022. Consideration of acceptance of the treasurer's report and approval to pay the bills. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Laurie, I'm going to hand that over to you.
Okay. So as of October 31st, we have a general fund balance of just over 4.8 million. We're right in line with where we were last year at this time. We have collected, we're at 93% revenues and 71% expenditures. And all of the bills have been reviewed and are recommended for payment.
Any comments or questions from the board? Any public comment or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 They both, okay, they both said aye. Okay.
Hey, Bob. The remote is on your corner. If you want to turn,
That's over
you have
there.
it too? Oh, there's two. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, 2-minute reports, board liaisons. Bob, do you have anything?
All good.
Okay. Susan or Danielle, do either of you have any 2-minute reports?
I do not.
Danielle?
I've just lost sound in the room.
We just lost her. Okay. Mark, do you have any 2-minute reports?
Planning Commission had a discussion about the Reeves tract on the reservoir, and we'll be talking about it more later, so I don't have anything additional on that.
Okay. Did the Historical Commission forward you anything?
Essentially farm sensitive, that one.
Okay. Right. Polig, for the Reeves tract, did come and talk to the Historical Commission. But I don't think that they have sent any recommendations to the board or to Lori at this time. Have
They were scheduling a site visit to look at the historic
Okay.
properties.
Okay. And that's pretty much where it stands. So I don't have any other 2-minute reports. Lori?
So, very briefly, but Paul Lehman Drive, the project has started somewhat. They did tree removal this week. That was all completed. We have a tentative start date at this point of next week. Residents that are in the area have been notified. We don't have a firm project construction start date yet, but it's looking like it is going to be next week. And when we do receive the, hey, we're going to be there tomorrow starting, we'll put it on our website. The only other things, next week, Tuesday, is Election Day. The Township building is a polling place. So just keep that in mind. If your Township staff will be working, but the offices are not going to be open. So you can reach us by phone and email, but it's a very busy place here. So the administrative office is not going to be open that day.
So you guys will be working from home?
Working from home.
Okay.
Yep. Veterans Day, the Township building is closed. That's next Friday, the 11th, and the Township building is also closed for Thanksgiving on the 24th and the 25th.
Okay. Chief of Police?
I'm back.
Oh,
Great.
Oh. okay. Bill, would you like to come on up to the microphone for us? I understand Chief is not with us, so you're standing in for us. Thank you.
Right. I believe you all have a copy of the Chief's monthly report. If there's any questions or clarifications that you need, I'm here.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the police report? Actually, I do. It's not really a question, but I guess it kind of is. Where in this do you have anything that comes through from, what is it, the bus patrol?
I don't have the numbers on that because that's actually a civil action rather than a.
Oh, okay.
We don't write the citations for that. That's automatically done by the company. But
Okay.
if you like, I can have them.
No, so it's not included in this, then?
No, Chris
Okay.
Apoloni is running that program for us now. So if you'd like those numbers, I can have him forward them to you.
Okay, maybe next month. I think
Okay.
it might be something that the public would be interested in hearing.
Right.
Because I know it's something that I've talked about a lot, and I do get a lot of people that roll their eyes at me like, yeah, sure. But I think they'd be really interested in hearing some real numbers.
Yeah,
So-
I know an approximate number. I think last month there was between 20 and 30.
Okay,
So
okay.
we're starting to get a few hearings on that too. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
So
okay,
Bill,
good.
under total arrests, are some of those arrests due to, I noticed the number's up a good bit from last year, year to date. Are some of those due to people that get pulled over and you find out that they've got a warrant or something's
No,
hanging out there? These are
that's-
just,
That's just criminal arrest.
okay. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Township engineer.
Yeah, just going to talk about Paul Lehman, but Lori talked about it, so nothing else to
Okay.
report.
I stole
Okay.
his thunder.
All right, it's very exciting to have that project start, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, moving on to board discussion items. I know some of you had arrived late. I am moving the agenda around a little bit. We're going to start with the discussion on Wawa first, and then we will be moving on to the budget. So Thank you. There you
Martha,
go.
just before we begin,
Okay.
I just wanted to set sort of the framework as to how we got here. We had a planning commission meeting where the project was discussed. This is a sketch plan discussion, not a formal filing. And the idea is to work back and forth to see if we can narrow the issues. The applicant, through Ms. Schuylkill, requested an opportunity to meet and discuss some of the more technical legal issues. The board's contention was we'd rather do this in public, and that's why we're here. There's just one additional thought about that. It seems that a conditional use might be required. In that circumstance, the supervisors who are here and online would end up in the position of making a decision in a judicial sense in terms of the conditional use. So I think it's important to understand that they're here to listen and to be informed, but they will not be actively participating in the meeting so as not to impair any of their duties in the conditional use paradigm. And we'd also ask you to just state for the record, there's no record, but there's a video, that you have no objection to the supervisors sitting in and listening to whatever happens.
Good evening. Hi, Deborah Schuylkill with the firm of Riley, Riper, Hanakala, Greco here on behalf of the applicant, and certainly we have no objection to that. We appreciate the board putting us on the agenda, and we appreciate you moving us up on the agenda as well. Also with me this evening is Joe Bada, who's here on behalf of the applicant, also happens to be a resident of your community, and C.J. Bach with Bowler Engineering, who's our civil engineer for the project. And as Mr. Brennan indicated, we have a pending sketch plan application with the township. We were, before the Planning Commission, had a very thorough and productive meeting, we thought, before the Planning Commission. This property, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. It's the location of the Sunoco, Exxon convenience store and gas pumps at the intersection of Valley Forge Road and North White Horse Road. And my client's proposing a redevelopment of this site for purposes of constructing a Wawa. And we believe that there's going to be a number of improvements, which I'm going to have them walk you through tonight. I know we're here predominantly to discuss a few zoning-related interpretation issues, but I think to put it in context, we really have to kind of walk through, and we'll do it very quickly, given the timing, but we'll have to walk you through some of the existing conditions of the site and then the proposal, just so you have a better understanding of what it is that we're going to be discussing in terms of the zoning. But
So if I could just interrupt you just for a second, I do think that it's important that Paul answer any of your questions or even respond to any of your questions regarding the engineering, just because I don't think it's really appropriate for the board to do so at this time.
Understood.
Okay?
Yeah, Bill
Sure.
and I will help.
certainly.
Okay.
And this site there's numerous nonconformities. The Exxon station and convenience store was built back in the 1970s, so as you can imagine, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with the location of it, it pretty much sits right on top of the intersection. The gas pumps are very close to the intersection there. So that's one of the issues that we'll be discussing once we go through it, is that what's being proposed, in addition to a number of other improvements, including stormwater management where none currently exists, we're going to be reducing some of those non-conforming conditions substantially. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Joe just to say a few words about himself, and then we'll have CJ walk you through the plan, and then we can kind of focus more on some of those zoning items. I just think it's important for you to understand what's being proposed before we jump into that.
Thank you, Board, for hearing us tonight and hearing our application, even though it's a sketch plan. I'm a 20-year resident of Schuylkill Township. Love living here. Always wanted to do a project in Schuylkill Township. Never had the ability to do it. Did do the Walgreens down in Phoenixville Borough and that redevelopment of the Valrio Diner and the Fountain Inn. I've been a Wawa developer for 14 years, so we're a preferred developer for them. I'm going to open our 35th store in December, so we're very antiquated with, the Wawa development, working in communities, trying to build a Class A project. So I think what we're proposing here is much better than the existing use, and I think we're cleaning up a corner that is in desperate need of redevelopment.
And I think at this time I'll have CJ just walk you through and show you the existing conditions on the site. And we do have some photos that we had taken so you could see. And then the proposed conditions.
Take this with me?
Actually, before you get started, we do have another board member that just walked through the door. If you could wait for her to get settled.
And yeah, it's mobile. It can.
Hello? Yes.
My name's CJ Bach. I'm with Bowler Engineering. I'm here representing Joe with this project. And what we are proposing entails the redevelopment of the properties located on the north corner of Valley Forge Road and North Whitehorse Road. As mentioned earlier, it's the location of the presently the Exxon, as we can see here in this street view rendering. I'll put it on the board here so everybody can see it. Everybody's probably familiar with it. What this proposal entails, and I'm going to show the wall, is the redevelopment of a collection of small parcels at this corner, inclusive of the existing Exxon, in order to facilitate a modern Wawa convenience store. 6,049 square feet is the current prototype, with a what we'll call a straight 5 gas canopy. The canopy right now we're proposing would be an A-frame canopy, which you can kind of see in this rendering here, which public can't see everywhere. A-frame canopy, proposed Wawa store in the back. Recently presenting this plan, we got some feedback from the planning commission about dressing up some of this frontage, so this has actually been embellished since we last presented the project to the public, to include a decorative sign welcoming people to Schuylkill Township, as well as some brick piers and fence to really kind of enhance the frontage. One of the salient features of the project is moving the tanks and the canopy back off the frontage. It's significantly further back than it currently is today. Currently, it's only actually several feet from what we'll call the ultimate right-of-way. Our canopy is significantly further back to that end. I mean, without getting into the actual numbers, it's much further back. Part of our application, though, because of the size of the modern Wawa, the safe driving aisles and maneuvering areas for trucks, in order to do this development, we need more property. And so that now includes, like I said, a collection of small parcels back here in conjunction with the tool rental across the street, who currently uses and occupies this area for the storage of all their tools. Working with them, we came up with kind of a joint kind of development where they get kind of a more cleaned up area for all their stuff, and we get the kind of the geometry we need in order to facilitate what is required for a modern Wawa. Part of making this geometry work, though, will entail us trying to at least preserve, and to some degree, the existing nonconformities on the site presented by the existing Exxon, namely the position of the canopy relative to the front. The current ordinance requires it to be pretty far back. And we get close, but we cannot achieve that actual distance. But again, as I've noted, we are significantly further back than the existing condition. The issue presented is that the existing canopy straddles 2 of these lots. This development contemplates 4 total small lots and combines them and then re-subdivides them into 2. But preserving the existing nonconformity from the state of multiple lots and how it straddles them into our proposed condition where it's a new lot, that is the crux of the problem. Clearly, these 2 properties enjoy that right of having the canopy at that distance. And now, again, because we're kind of collectively assembling them, we'd like to preserve it. It's still in the general proximity of where that existing nonconformity is enjoyed today. So that would kind of be our plea to be able to preserve that.
CJ, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
we're also reducing the scale, the size of the amount of pumps as well as the canopy size.
Everything is less intense, so it's instead of 6 pumps, there are only 5. The footprint of the canopy is almost half as big, so it's much more scaled down, kind of neighborhood-type gas station. But again, there is still some requirements about, how wide drive aisles should be for safe maneuvering and maneuvering of trucks. One of the other existing nonconformities we'd like to try to preserve with this collection of properties is the proximity of parking to what we'll call internal property lines. So amongst all 4 of these properties, collectively, inside of here, there are a litany of properties, or property lines, that separate all these parcels. The darkness of some of these lines isn't great across the room, but again, if you were to see this and didn't see this aerial, you would note that there are cars littered all across all these properties on, across, and near the interior property lines. So whoever, all these properties are enjoying that right, or that existing nonconformity to have cars parked there. We would be looking for some kind of minor preservation of that. Right now, I think the interior side setback for parking would be half the side yard setback, in this case 12.5 feet. Our layout kind of proposes something closer to almost 11 feet. We get very close. But again, the geometry is pretty compressed, or as compressed as we can get to still maintain, the modern layout, and it just needs a little bit of help. And I think because of where those cars are positioned today and how that's enjoyed today, if 0 side yard parking setbacks enjoyed today on these interior lines, then the proposed lines I would propose should in some way be able to preserve that existing nonconformity. But the crux of it is what happens when I consolidate them, and how do we manage to preserve that in some way through that process.
So those are really the two issues dealing with nonconformities, is the reduction, is being able to maintain the existing front yard. And we're actually.
I'm sorry, can you get the microphone? We can't hear you. That's okay.
So as CJ mentioned, the crux of the nonconformity issue is twofold. It's one, the front yard nonconforming condition with respect to the location of the fuel pump / canopy. And our position is that we are reducing that dramatically from the existing condition and should be entitled to continue that nonconforming condition. It's, as CJ mentioned, it's generally in the same location. It's not like we're moving the gas pumps to the back of the property. That's a different portion of the lot that isn't currently the lot. It's still generally in the same location where it exists today. And then the other item relating to the nonconformity is the parking setback, which he mentioned is currently all over the place in terms of where the cars are parking. And then there's one other zoning, more of a legal interpretation issue dealing with whether or not the canopies are considered, the fuel pumps are considered an accessory structure, and whether they have to comply with another section of the ordinance, which our view of that, well, there's a number of different positions, but one of them is that it's not, the fuel pumps are not accessory, they're integral to the use, the convenience store use, the sale of gasoline, as another principal structure that's permitted. But in the alternative, there's also a section, the convenience store section, which requires conditional use approval. It sets forth various specific standards relating to the fuel pumps, and some of them are inconsistent with those general standards in that accessory structure provision, which seems to be more geared towards residential garages or those types of structures. If we had to comply with that, you'd never be able to have a fuel pump with a convenience store, which is in fact permitted under the ordinance. So our position on that is that the section governing convenience stores sets forth the location and the number of fuel dispensers that are permitted, and if they wanted to have a specific limitation on the size of the canopy itself, they would have included it in that section.
Okay, maybe you and I spoke about this, but maybe just for the board and the public to get an idea of what our thinking was. One of the problems or issues with this project is that you're starting with 4 smaller lots. How's this? A little better? You're starting with 4 smaller lots, and they are to be combined into 1 lot. And normally that would involve a new UPI number and, basically a single lot. But the next step in the process is that the single lot would be divided into 2 pieces. So my understanding of the doctrine of merger as it applies to situations like this is that you're ending up with 2 new lots. And one of them is for the rental place across the street, we get that. But the lot that the Wawa property will be on will have its own UPI number. It'll be larger than either of the other lots. And the concern is that part of that lot does not have the legal benefit of the nonconformity that, was given or is used in connection with the Exxon operation. So I talked about my egg analogy. You've got 4 eggs, 4 properties. You crack them all into one bowl. Then you have one thing, and then you cook an omelet and divide it in half. So under the doctrine of merger, any rights that went along with the nonconformity, we think are lost. No fault of yours. It's a characteristic of the type of development that you're using. I checked this very carefully. I looked at your cases. You are correct about everything you say about nonconformities, but none of that applies to a new lot that is being constructed this year at this time in connection with the process. Now, that doesn't mean that, that the board is vigorously opposed to your project or that they're in favor. It means nothing other than that it's a legal issue that has to be dealt with. And so we talked about, and the accessory structure is similar, and Paul can talk about that. But as we discussed, this is not a reason to hold up your project. I mean, you have to go into the zoning hearing board anyway for relief. It doesn't hurt you. I don't give people advice in this circumstance, but it doesn't hurt you to add the relief that you would need based upon it being a new lot to your list of required variances or whatever. And then if those variances are granted, you've solved the problem. If you come in and you say, we don't need this stuff, and that's your position, I don't know what the board will do, but it could be problematic in the conditional use paradigm. You might not get it. Then you're up in court to resolve that. If you win that, you got to come back. So there is a path to a solution. I can't tell you to do it. You do whatever you need, but at least it will get you started. You have the right to do the conditional use and the zoning hearing board at the same time, or some people prefer to get the conditional use done first so that you don't spend extra time on the zoning hearing board if the problems are insurmountable. Now, I'm sort of summarizing this. I can't find a case that deals with this point exactly. I've seen your cases about similar and all that business, and when you merge 2 lots, you get some benefit. But this is it's not merging 2 lots, it's destroying the separate nature of the 4 lots and coming out with a totally different lot. So I understand your position. As we said the last time, you're in a much better position you would otherwise be in because it's already a convenience store with gas. We understand that. But this issue has to be resolved legally.
And thank you for that. But I'm not aware of any cases that deal with this exact specific situation because it is somewhat unusual. But I'm also not aware of any cases that would preclude us from still relying on the non-conforming condition. The cases that I think you may be talking about that discuss the various relocation of structures onto another property, I know there was a tower case where they tried to relocate it, 2 properties down, and they lost their entitlement to do it. It was a completely separate property. But here, we want to just rely on what's already there, that same location in the front of the property. It's not like we're moving the pumps to the back of the property where we're changing those lot lines and changing the property. So I don't know that the courts would not agree that we still have the right to do this. I just think it's a situation where it's not clearly addressed. But I think that we still have the ability to rely on the non-conforming conditions. I mean, we're clearly improving it. I mean, right now, it's practically, the pumps are practically on the road there, and it's clearly a reduction in the non-conforming condition.
Well, I intend to keep looking into it. This is not a decision. There'll be no decision rendered here, and
Right.
you have
No, I know
you
it's
have
not
all
an
the
easy-
rights you have, and
Right.
if you want to go ahead, if you feel that you're right, and, and you don't go for that relief, there could be, unhappy consequences if you're not. I'm not saying, I just don't know.
I mean, I guess we need to get some formal determination then, so we know how to proceed. We didn't think we needed any variance relief, so I understand what you're saying. If we were going to go there anyhow, just add it on or ask for it in the alternative in the event you need it, but we didn't think we needed anything, so I also don't
thought there were
want
two
to ask
or
for something that we may not need and then open up, a process that isn't necessary. Because as you know, there's a certain standard under Pennsylvania state law for demonstrating entitlement to a variance, and it's not always the easiest standard.
I thought on your plan there were several indications of where variances would be required.
No, that's only if the township doesn't agree with the existing nonconformities.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah.
We had noted in our sketch plan submission that we may need some interpretation on that.
Yeah, there were two variances that they had requested. They were requesting a variance from section 370 sorry. Yes, on the original sketch plan, they were requesting a variance from section 370-79 to permit a front yard depth of 45.3 feet where the minimum depth of 50 feet is required. And again, we through our review, we noted that we believe it's actually 27.1 feet because that's measured from Valley Forge Road. Secondly, they were asking for a variance from section 370-169C to permit a minimum setback of 59.3 feet where all gasoline pumps in the canopy covering such pumps shall be set back at least 75 feet from the legal right-of-way and 50 feet from the ultimate right-of-way of all streets abutting the lot upon which the convenience store is located. So those were the two.
That was, if the township didn't agree, I mean, that.
So those were the two variances that were requested. And just to follow up on Bill, the original sketch plan had listed existing lot 1, existing lot 2, proposed lot 1, proposed lot 2. Obviously, there's a proposed lot 1 and a proposed lot 2, but there was no existing lot 1 and no existing lot 2. I clarified that for the Planning Commission. In that example, I said there's actually properties A, B, C, and D. Now, the Wawa property is taking the two parcels that are where the existing Exxon and gas station are. Additionally, they're taking over some of the land where the total rental is, and they park their vehicles on the axis on North Whitehorse Road. Total rental property along the side is basically remaining the same, but they're also taking over the older auto repair shop. So again, it's 4 existing lots going to 2, and when we looked at this, our opinion is that you're creating a new lot, so it's proposed, so the existing nonconformities do not carry over. It's not, we didn't feel it's a continuance because you are creating a new lot. You're expanding the lot, and that's why we listed them in the review letter.
It's pretty complex, though, because they are the same uses, right? So they're just shifting back. I understand we're putting 4 lots together, but it's the same uses, and we're just making those non-conformities better.
No, I understand, but the existing total rental lot isn't part of the Exxon and the gas pump. So that is going furthering into there, you're creating a new lot that did not carry those existing nonconformities. That's why these two, proposed lot 1, proposed lot 2, should be looked at independently of, instead of with conjunction of existing nonconformities.
May I ask the new speaker to speak into a microphone?
We're in a pause, Danielle, we're thinking.
She's asking for everybody to speak into a mic so she can hear.
Okay.
Sure.
So those were, I guess those are the prevalent, the two issues are the nonconformity, and then the other one was the accessory, whether or not the fuel pumps are considered, whether they have to comply with that other section of the ordinance governing the accessory structures.
Yeah, correct. And our opinion with the accessory structure, again, coming from the definition, is an accessory structure is subordinate in terms of size, area, purpose, and extent of use. So it was our opinion that the canopy is clearly smaller than the Wawa itself. In terms of purpose, You know, the Wawa is going to be selling food, beverages, lubricants, personal care items, where the canopies are only, or excuse me, the gas pump and the canopy are only for the fuel dispensary. And another part was the accessory structure typically cannot function independently of the primary structure. And again, I would argue that a gas pump and a canopy cannot operate solely without the Wawa. There will be no employees, there will be no restrooms, and there will be certainly nowhere to have the food, the beverage, the personal care, and the lubricants for sale there. So that's why we assumed it would to be an accessory structure. The primary structure would be the Wawa, it's larger, and the accessory structure is the canopy and the gas pumps.
And again, I mean, we think there could be two principal structures. There's nothing that precludes it in your ordinance, but also that other section governing the convenience store clearly has specific terms governing the fuel pumps, which we think would take precedent over that other general section of the accessory structures. And also, the Wawa that was proposed 6 years ago, they had to go in and obtain zoning variances, presumably at the direction of the zoning officer, and that was not one of the relief that they were required to obtain at that time.
That was a different application. I don't think that applies. Same thing with the 113 application. You know, you might be right, and we can't tell you, we never would tell you what your plan has to show, and you know, you file your plan and we respond. We're just trying to give you the benefit of our thinking on this, and I don't want you to be surprised if that issue does come up. And as I said, I'll keep looking into it. If I find anything, I'll let you know. But my thinking right now is it's a new lot.
So you're talking about the nonconformings, or you, I'm a little confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about nonconformity.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
okay. And we also believe that you know, the requirements for an accessory structure are set forth there, and this falls right into it. So I don't see how you get around that.
Okay, because under that interpretation, then you would never be able to have, you'd never be able to have a convenience store with fuel pumps, because they would never be able to meet the fuel pumps, because you're required to have a canopy under the convenience store regulations, under the specific standards. And if you had to comply with the accessory structure standards, which again seem to apply more to residential structures, you would never be able to have a fuel pump. So you essentially won't be able to have a convenience store with fuel pumps under that interpretation.
Well, let's say there's a requirement in our residential section that all houses have to have a separate garage. And proposal comes in, and the question is whether a separate garage is an accessory structure, notwithstanding the fact that it's required. I don't think the fact that it's required changes its basic nature from being an accessory in terms of definition to something that's allowed. So, you know, we can wrestle with this, but if you want to move ahead, you know, you file whatever you wish to file. And you know, if you don't choose to put it in, you're right. Then you know, then fine. But all I'm saying is it could be a point of contention. That's all.
Right. Well, no, I mean, we certainly want direction. We're not trying to be difficult. We need direction from the township.
Well,
so
let's be careful with that too, because we can't give you
Well,
real
not you,
direction. You
the
know,
zoning officer, it's really the zoning officer's determination that we need. The zoning officer is the one charged with interpreting the zoning ordinance. So
it's happened too often in my brilliant career where this sort of thing happens, and we make suggestions, and then you do it, and it doesn't go right. Then you say, "Well, you told me to do this," you know. So we don't want to get trapped in that. And this is an important project for the township. So, and you know, we don't want to have any surprises either way. So we're telling you what we think.
No, we appreciate that. I mean, I'm just used to submitting something, typically a sketch plan, and I know we've done this with Paul and other municipalities in Warminster, and they submit, you know, send a letter and they say you need X, Y, and Z, and then we go to the zoning hearing board, or we don't go to the zoning, you know, so we know exactly what we're seeking, and there's no surprises.
Well, I don't know where we go with that.
Well,
So, I mean, I guess we could, you know, my letter had requested a formal zoning determination, so I guess if that would, I mean, would that be okay for you? Then we know, and then we can, you know, either appeal that and ask for the relief in the alternative, which is something that's very common.
Did you ask for the determination?
I did, and that, yes.
There's a deadline on there, 30 days.
I don't think so. I don't
No,
believe
there's-
there's a
there's no
deadline for a
deadline.
zoning determination.
There's a timely factor, but
Is it what?
you should be timely with your zoning determinations.
Well, we're always
yeah,
timely.
there's
I just don't wanna
there's
miss-
no deadline.
No, Bill's very good about,
Timely,
he's
but
very
not-
good
but
about
not-
getting back to
not
me.
a
I must say.
deadline.
He's very diligent.
All right, well, thank you for coming in.
Okay.
And it's an interesting project, as will be.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you again. Thanks for taking us, and
Thank you.
Get home and get
Oh,
that
I
game
have a
6 minutes
quick
away.
question, actually.
I'm 4,
You
you're
had
6.
given us permission before to post the sketch plans on the website.
Police side along Valley
Can I
Park,
add these?
so
Great.
I'm an
Okay,
Anderson Farm,
thank
so
you.
just
Thank
upstairs.
you.
want to add any of the other, we did
The other ones that you submitted? Perfect. Great. Wonderful.
Okay, great.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, moving back to number 1 of our board discussion items. I think we need to have a discussion regarding our budget for adoption. Do you have, where's the one where you wrote?
That is for the traffic. Yeah,
Where is it? Okay, who would like to start with our budget? You wanted to do that, right, Lori?
Yes. Sorry, I don't know what happened to that. I'll find it.
Oh, I have it.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's
Everything's a mess here.
We have too many papers.
I
floating
know,
around over here.
exactly. Okay.
So, we had our budget meeting, the last meeting that we had was our special budget meeting. So tonight, what we'll be asking for is approval to advertise the 2023 proposed budget. So we just have a couple items that were left on the table from our last discussion. So I'm just going to start with those. The budget that has been proposed before you tonight that you all were provided includes and we discussed this at the last meeting, it includes the addition of 1 additional full-time police officer. So if you adopt the budget as I've proposed it tonight, you will be approving the inclusion of that additional police officer. So we just need to continue that discussion to make a determination on that before the formal vote on the budget. So if we want to start with anybody who has any questions or
Sure,
comments
I
on that.
I just have a thought on it that the chief approached us a while back, and we've worked through quite a few things, upgrades with technology and, well, quite a few things, and the force has done a great job. The chief approached us a while back, Susan and I are the liaison, to discuss adding another officer. We asked him to present the board with his case, and did a great job. And I wanted to do some research, so I reached out to some retired police that I know and different supervisors past and of other townships throughout Pennsylvania and actually in New York. And I was given a list of questions that help you to justify whether or not to enlarge a force. And, you know, these were things like, have you had a significant increase in crime or a decrease in police services, significant increase in population? The open space has done a great job to help to prevent that, as well as that was part of their pitch was if we buy down density, we can limit our infrastructure on streets and services, and they've done a great job at limiting density. There was a question about our current span of control and the ratio that we have, as well as one of the questions, are we a hub for criminals to be brought in for any reason for screening? We used to be. We're not anymore. I think it was called Live Scan is no longer with us in this township. It's over in Phoenixville. So, and last, we have a good working mutual aid program with other townships. And when I went through these questions and I answered them, I came up with the decision that I have, and the police knows my position, or the chief knows my position on this. We've been transparent in our discussions. We do have great mutual aid. And I have to keep in mind that sometimes right now we have 5 police at a time based on the schedule I'm seeing with the history that we had originally wanted to have 2 police on at all times. We had a chief, 8 patrol. We added a lieutenant, which is a great addition, great job. And then we added a 9th officer who was more or less a floater for the 4 platoons. If somebody was out, we'd have somebody to backfill. And our level of service, I believe, is exceptional in this township. We get a lot of unsolicited letters from people. I don't believe we've had major population growth or significant increase in crime. So I don't have a great feeling about this. The chief did make a good case for a lot of areas, and last year was probably one of the tougher years. I think we can all agree. We had a man out for 8 months. We had a new chief we were indoctrinating. We had accreditation we worked through. We've done a great job with a tough year. So hats off to the police. In the end, with some of the technology we improved on, we had a person retire in the admin area. So we're actually coming in under budget, and that's a great thing. Last year was an anomaly. Last year was really hard. It's not the typical year. Doesn't mean it can't happen again, but we're not going to have to go through some of the things that we did, hopefully, for a long time. So that said, coming in under budget and having a surplus in one department doesn't mean, in my opinion, that it justifies spending it on additional staff. What I look at coming down the road is an increase in the cost of labor, fuel, vehicles. They're all going up at record rates. Inflation's a major issue in the country right now, and the Fed's intentionally raising interest rates to force a recession. So, as my financial guy told me this morning, we're in a spiral that nobody knows where it's going to go, but it's kind of scary. So I have serious concerns about any township or any upgrades in any of the departments of the township going right now with additional labor. We do have some big ticket items that are looming in the future, including possibly a new fire truck, upgrades to this building, and it's a police contract year. So those things I think need to be addressed and gotten through, and this I told to the chief directly. I feel it's fiscally conservative to get through the things that we have that are absolute needs. And what I told him directly is then I think after the smoke clears with all the financial musts that we have pending, then I think we could come back and revisit it if we have justification and if we have the money. Right now, I'm concerned about both. I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to add staff when we have so many unknowns in the future and we have so many needs that we know we have to make. I wouldn't want to take another expense on and then come up to the next level of needs and say, sorry, we can't afford it. I think we need to take care of who we have and the projects we have with the building and that sort of thing before we do anything like this. So for that reason, I can't support adding another officer right now. I think it's not the right time, and I don't feel that we have the justification.
All right.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Yeah. So I left the budget meeting last time with a question mark over my head as to where I was going to go, so I asked some more questions. I got some answers. I'm going to go over a bit of my thoughts on it because I feel it's important to respond to some of the concerns raised there. Well, I do have minor concerns about the police contract coming up next year and anything that may come of that and the uncertainties with that. I think that that being my most major concern is outweighed by the safety and liability concerns associated with having a lack of redundancy in certain areas of the police force. I think that right now we have some times when we'll only have the 2 guys on at night, or two police officers on at night, and say one's bringing in somebody for booking. You have to still have one person on in the township, and that one person taking that person in for booking and has to bring them in alone. I don't like that. I feel that it's kind of that buddy system we learned in like back in elementary school. It doesn't feel like, it feels like we're introducing unnecessary liability by not having somebody to have a redundancy in that place. By bringing on a new officer, we bring on somebody who's moved up to a corporal position, they become a supervisory officer, and they can back up without having to lose the control within the township while you have two people run people down to book them. I understand that last year was an anomaly with somebody out 8 months, but we do have, looking over the past few years, we have had somebody out here and there between paternity or maternity leave or just general sickness. We've had COVID over the past couple of years, which has been an anomaly, but I mean, it might not be anomalous moving forward. We have, I mean, I came down with it this year. I was out of work for a week myself. Well, we've had an anomalous 8 month out. I don't see a month here or a few weeks from somebody else, or we have somebody taking comp time. There's a lot of people with comp hours ready to go, and I'd like to see one more officer brought on full time. We have an issue with people coming in for through police academies right now. There's not as many people applying as there used to be, and while we have two great part-time officers, and we'd be able to bring on one of them full-time with all the training and all the equipment and all the things that come with their part-time position. I think that in the long run, we see a few of our officers retiring within the next few years, and we can follow up then. We're bringing on someone at $70,000 now who will be up to full salary within 5 years, but within those 5 years, I expect somebody to retire here and there, maybe a couple of officers. If we do find that was an unnecessary addition, we're not extending the budget beyond our means, and at that time we can roll it back if we find that officer was unnecessary. So I think that I'd have to say I'm now, instead of undecided, I'm leaning towards bringing somebody on. I think it's justified within the budget. I think it reduces liability and safety concerns that I've had longer term with the police department, and we have the flexibility to follow back up on this in a couple of years, and when somebody retires, and if we do need to roll back the force one officer again, we can talk about it then.
Okay.
You want to go next?
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say I agree with Bob. I think that everything he said holds true. There have been no issues with our police service. They do an excellent job. Our force is tremendous, and we have had no complaints or issues. I've heard no issues with liability, so I think we have the right number of police officers. I've also been on the board when we had a tax increase. I really want to avoid that, especially in our current environment where everything else is so expensive for people. We also have the township have other issues that we have to spend money on, such as water problems. You heard about Paul Lehman Drive. Those are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I just don't see a need to add expense for personnel at this time. It's also very difficult. We asked the police chief if anyone was talking about retiring. No one's talking about retiring. Our police also have a 2-year drop, so there's going to be at least 2 years plus before anyone retires. And we cannot terminate police officers. So if we hire someone and we find out in a year or two that we don't need them, we can't terminate police officers like you can in regular businesses. So I agree with Bob. I think it makes more sense to be cautious, to see if we need this person, and to reassess it next year.
Danielle, do we still have you on the phone? Did you want to
I'm
comment?
here. Thank you, Martha. Yes, I would say I think that the chief has done an excellent job of demonstrating that the full-time officer, the expense associated with that officer would offset a lot of the part-time expenditures that we've had, and could potentially reduce the amount of overtime expense that the police department has incurred. I think that the chief has demonstrated his fiscal responsibility in terms of keeping costs in other areas of the budget down. As Mark noted, we're not seeing an increase in the budget due to this additional officer, and I think that he's in my mind, really demonstrated the need for the additional full-time officer to offset the 2 part-time officers, and why that's warranted. Thank you.
So I'll just say that one of the questions I had for one of our neighboring townships is how has it been working with mutual aid? Because I too don't want to have a police officer left alone in a bad position, and the feedback's been really positive that we do a good job with mutual aid over to Phoenixville or East Pikeland, and they in turn do a good job to back us up as needed. During the day, there's times we have 5 police officers on because the floater isn't needed to fill somebody else's spot, and we have the chief and lieutenant. They can respond if they need to in an emergency. So we have 3 patrol on and 2 police that we can use as backups if we need to, which is during the school hours, which for me, that's a big deal. We've done a great job with school walkthroughs and trying to prepare for, God forbid ever, an active shooter incident occurs. We've done a phenomenal job with that. But I think the bigger question we have to ask ourselves is we have always been geared to have 2 on patrol at all times. We have that, and we have a floater to backfill. When I look at the schedule, I see us moving to 3 on at a time. And when you talk about the control span, or the span of control, we will now have 4 people at a management level and 8 patrolmen. That's a 2-to-1 ratio. It's recommended to have a 5-to-1 ratio. We're going to be 2.5 times what the recommendation is according to that, which if you go to, there's NIMS, Federal Emergency Management, and other sites, 5-to-1's recommended. We're going to be 2.5 times over what's recommended. So knowing that we're really talking about going from 2 to 3 is what is happening, and if that follows suit, we may be talking to add another in the next year or 2. So the thing that I want to point out is when you hear a temporary tax increase in government, it never goes backwards. It always stays. When you hear we can hire one, and then if we don't need them later, we can get rid of one as one retires, it hasn't happened. So one of the other things that you mentioned, some of the other areas we have to put expenses into, we've got 2 major developments on the table right now, the legal expenses, and the budget for that can be very high. So again, my suggestion would have been to at least get 1 year under our belt without the anomaly year of COVID and all the other things that just passed to see how we do. The reason we're below budget to a large degree is because we've updated our technology, and with that, you spend money up front, but you can cut staff. That's part of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that, hey, we have budget money to spend, let's use it. There are other expenses in other areas that may go over budget. So when one's down from a business perspective, I've heard it all the time, use it or lose it. No, that's not the case. That may be the philosophy of bad business, but good business is, hey, we have a savings here. Where else are we over? Let's take a look at it. And let's revisit this after the storms pass of all the projects and things we have coming up. Again, that's my opinion. If the board feels otherwise, I get it.
I'll make a quick note. Something that may have been confusing. I got the gist of what you're saying, but I wanted to make a note. There is no tax increase proposed with this, and I get the point you were trying to make with that. But I just want to make sure there is no tax increase with this. This would just be, it would be an increase in staff, not in tax.
And I'm not saying there is a tax increase. My concern is when we look at the renovations need to bring this building up to the safe level it should be and up to code, that's an unknown. That may be 100,000, it might be 2 million, we don't know. When we look at the police contract, when we look at the need for the fire company, those are needs I think we should get behind us before we enlarge our staff. That's my position.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that I said during our budget meeting, and it was that we had our former chief of police who actually recommended that we hire another person, and he put it off because he knew that the board at the time was not interested in hiring another person. And then when we got a new chief of police and our current lieutenant together said, hey, this is somebody that we need. This is something that has been going on and being talked about for a long time. And I think that we need to pay attention to the people who do this for a living. And we brought someone in from the outside, and that's where I stand on that. I agree with a number of the things that Mark said, and I'm just not going to waste the time in repeating them. So, what do we need to do now? Do we just need to say about a consensus for the police budget?
I would recommend we take a vote based on the discussion.
All right. So the police budget that we have, I'll make the motion that we adopt the police budget as proposed.
Which includes the new officer.
Which includes the new officer. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more comments or questions from the board? Any public comment or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it's 3-2, which passes. Okay. Lori, you had another comment about the budget that we needed to follow up on before we
Yes.
make the motion to...
Sorry, just capturing
No,
the
that's
motion.
okay, that's all right. Tina, do you have everything? Am I speaking to, okay, all right.
Great. So the other item that was left on the table for further discussion at the last meeting was regarding the fire department budget. So we discussed, and I plugged into the budget, and that is what is included in the proposed budget, a $225,000 contribution towards their operating expenses, which includes the fee for the CPA that we've been discussing. So that is the amount that's plugged into the budget, so we just, I just need either a motion or a consensus, a discussion to decide whether or not that's what you'd like to see remain in the budget when you adopt the budget.
Bob, do you have any comments or questions about about the fire budget? No?
No, I
Susan?
think we all discussed that.
Okay. Mark? Danielle?
No.
And I don't either. So I will make,
One more thing with the.
okay. Do we need to make a motion about that or no? Or are we just all?
It's in the budget.
It'll be part of our.
Okay.
It's included, so
Okay.
I think that you're okay.
Okay.
The second part of that that I put in and just need a final decision on, we've been discussing the need for, the fire department has asked for a new truck. So what we put into the budget at the workshop was $100,000 tentatively towards a deposit on a new fire truck, but that would require board approval before any contract being signed.
Yeah, and that's the way it's been, at least as long as I've been on the board, so,
Yep.
okay.
And with that, we also included in the budget hiring I'll call him a consultant, that we have talked to the fire department about, working on a strategic plan to help us all to work together and make sure that the needs of the fire department are being met and that the needs of the township are being met. So that's also included within the budget. It's not in the fire department budget, but it is included as a line item in the overall budget.
Okay. All right. That's it?
So if you're okay with all of those items, we don't need a separate motion, then you can just make a motion to authorize advertisement unless anybody else has any budget-related items to discuss based on the one I sent out. There is a $2,000 difference in versus the one that I sent you yesterday, so.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Any public comment or questions? Okay, so I will make the motion now. Consideration of advertisement of the 2023 Schuylkill Township budget, proposed budget for adoption on December 7th, 2022. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Okay.
there we go.
Great, thank you.
All right, number 3, discussion on the Act 209 Transportation Impact Fee Study. Consideration of the next steps in the study process. Who would like to lead this discussion?
I can give a
I'm
brief.
pointing fingers at Lori.
I assumed it was me. I made myself notes, so. So we have talked about this previously in public meetings. The township has been working for some time on an Act 209 transportation impact fee study that would effectively allow us to enact a fee schedule that we could assess on developers of new residential commercial developments that would impose a per trip fee for traffic. We have been working with McMahon and Associates, their traffic engineers, to work on this study, and we've reached a point where the data at this point is pointing to say that it's not really feasible for us to enact it. It's not going to be as valuable for us in this township. So what we can do at this point is take the data that we've already collected, and there are many factors for that. Most of them, the primary factor being that we don't have a whole lot of developable land left. So the potential fees that we will collect will be unlikely to raise enough money for us to actually make any traffic improvements at the identified intersections. And it's much more complicated than I just explained, but that's basically the gist of it. So what we can do now is the board can authorize me to work with McMahon and Associates and develop a scope of work that will allow us to, instead of going through this very specific MPC-driven process, we can pivot, work with McMahon to target specific intersections that we identified may need improvements, and then we can seek grant funding to actually make the improvements. So what we would be doing is stopping the process of enacting an impact fee and moving forward with a different scope of work.
Any comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay. I'll make the motion to discontinue the transportation impact fee ordinance and authorize the township manager to work with McMahon and Associates to develop a scope of work with the remaining project budget. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I like that delay in there, Danielle. All right. New business, consideration of advertisement of intent to appoint a certified public accountant for the Schuylkill Township 2022 audit. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Lori, you have any comments on this?
This is something we do every year.
Yeah.
We're required by code to advertise it. That's basically it.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Any public comment or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Resolutions and ordinances. Approval of resolution number 2022-20, adopting the stormwater management ordinance number 2022-02. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board? Paul, do I dare ask you if you would like to say anything?
Please don't.
No. We are good. We are good.
That was awesome. You took the words right out of my mouth. Okay. I know we've heard a lot about this, so I don't think we need to hear much more. All right. Does the public have any comment or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was really funny, Bill.
Aye.
Okay. The subdivision land development. Update on the zoning hearing board application, 40 Creek Road. The applicant is seeking an exception to current zoning. Lori?
Just a brief update on this. We discussed this at the last business meeting. This was the application that had come in to store the sheds on 40 Creek Road. They've withdrawn, so they may be.
Oh, great.
They may be applying for a different type of relief for a different type of project. They're contemplating just a residential dwelling. So just a brief update on that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Number 2, the zoning hearing board application, 1420 State Road. The applicant is seeking variances for conversion to a multifamily use, minimum lot size, and minimum unit size.
So this is the property that this applicant purchased was, I'm probably going to use the wrong term here, but group home is not accurate, but
Oh, is this the place that had, it was like a brain
Congregate Care,
damage?
thank you.
They had, they dealt with patients that had brain damage from accidents or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it was
Okay,
so it was a congregate care type of setting, so they had
okay.
approval for that. The applicant now is looking to convert it to apartments.
Without the nursing care?
That's correct. So they would be individual units. So they are seeking relief to the minimum lot size, and there's also a minimum apartment unit size included in our ordinance.
We don't have a lot of information, and we don't know how the original setup was made. That is, we don't know whether the number of units, is it 7 units, we said?
They've proposed 7, yes.
We don't know whether the 7 units was permitted because of the, the humanitarian type care that was being provided to persons in need. The question now is, they wish to go straight commercial with 7 lots, 7 units. So we don't have much information. The question is whether the board is interested in opposing the application or in allowing the zoning hearing board to make its own decision. I don't know how the neighbors feel about it. We haven't had any feedback that I know of.
No.
The things we worry about as staff, the worst things that we can be told is for supervisors to say, how did that happen? So we're a little bit short on info, but I don't know, it's up to you if you want to go in and oppose it. I think the hearing is coming up when?
November 14th.
So 14th, so we're not going to have another meeting. No.
It is,
I don't know offhand. I'm blanking.
Who has the zoning map? Bill, do you have the zoning map in your drawer there?
it's, I'm gonna know it as soon as he says it.
This is directly adjacent to the Meadowbrook, this is directly adjacent to the old Meadowbrook Golf Course, correct?
I think it shares the same driveway as the historic farmstead.
Where are we? Is there anything on here?
It's Pot House in 29. Where's Pot House?
Here's 29.
Yep.
So it looks as though the existing building is a single-family home, so they're planning on demolishing that and building a 7-unit?
No, it looks like a single-family home, but it is actually set up for congregate care, so there were multiple residents in it. It was sort of like a quasi-medical facility, I'll say. So they would just be, they're just remodeling the interior to turn it into 7 separate apartment units.
And it's zoned R2. Someone did ask that.
Yeah.
I think I asked that.
I asked that. I had to ask the zoning because I was curious.
Yeah, so as Bill just said, the question is simply, does the board want to send him to oppose the application or remain neutral and allow the zoning hearing board to hear the case and make the determination?
Without hearing from the neighbors, it's tough to say, without really looking at the property.
Yeah. Well, without looking at the neighbors and without trying to set any odd, without setting an odd precedent for a single-family home to be converted, or what would be a single-family home in a normal circumstance, I think, to be converted over to 8 or 7 apartments, is that?
It seems unusual.
Yeah.
But again, we don't.
I would agree.
Yeah, it seems weird. I don't know how many other properties it would apply to if they got variances for this through the zoning hearing board. So,
And I don't know, again, I hate to keep saying I don't know what the background is, but I don't know if they have a non-conforming right to have the equivalent of 7 apartment units in there. Certainly, if it's a sort of a group home, I mean, you use those terms anymore, but if it's a group home right now, it's a little bit different because I would think that the residents would be sharing dinners and sharing,
I think it's listed as an assisted living facility.
Congregate care.
Or something,
So it was not a traditional
it's not like
single-family home.
It's not like
Correct.
I mean, I would expect you're going to have an increase in traffic as well. If it was, some residential group home, now you have 7 dwelling units, 7 ambulatory people driving in and out of the building. I mean, it definitely seems like a different use that could impact the residents. I think since we have such a scarcity of information that was submitted based on what Lori had uploaded in the drive, I think we have to oppose it.
Yeah.
Tom, you wanted to say something? If you could come up to the microphone, I would appreciate it. And just for the record, we all know who you are, but can you state your name and your address?
Tom Fortman from Vincent Road. That area, there's 2 homes there that were used for that use. Is this planned for the one home or for both of the homes? Because 7 units in the one home doesn't really make sense.
It's just one.
It's
Really?
the one in the back, not the one that's on
okay,
State
that's
Road.
the bigger of the 2. Okay, thank you. Fully 0-0.
Thank you.
Give me an idea where this is again. I'm trying to pull it up on
It's,
Google Maps.
it's just north of Pot House on 29, and it's on the left side if you're going north,
Is that Campbell Lane
to the west.
or,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's actually right. I looked at it on Google Maps. It's actually not. It doesn't look to me like it's off of Campbell Lane. It looks like it has its own driveway.
Yeah.
okay,
It's just to the south of Campbell Lane.
okay. Yeah, I don't think we have enough information, but we're gonna send you there to oppose it on what grounds? I mean, that's where I'm a bit
Now,
confused.
Well, they need variances to,
is it variances or a special exception on this one? Special exception for the use, but is it variances for the number?
I don't know, it might be for parking or for size or setbacks, I
Yeah.
just don't know.
They need variances for the conversion to multifamily use, the minimum lot size, and the minimum unit size. That is what they're seeking.
So the units are going to be pretty small, is what you're saying, the individual units? I don't know, we had a unit size.
We do.
Yeah,
We have a minimum unit size. that go-
800 square foot per unit.
So it's just, I believe what's being proposed is just slightly.
Do we know if this is gonna be affordable housing? Or
That's a good
what
question.
whatever else they're calling,
Market rate. Or,
workforce housing
market
or
rate.
whatever the new term is?
Well, they're all different things.
Do we know?
We have not been told that.
So, without more information, I'd have to say I'm.
Yeah, again,
I'm sympathetic to the need for multifamily housing, and I like the idea of multifamily housing, but I'm also wary of an application that doesn't have a lot of information.
Right. But I feel weird sending you there without marching orders
Well,
because.
there's one other option, we tried it successfully in the shed case, which is you would pass a motion to send me to oppose it. I'd contact the applicant and say, look, the board has sent me to oppose it officially, but if you'll postpone it for a month, come to the supervisors and explain what you're doing, you might be able to change their mind. If they will not extend the time, then I go.
That's fair.
Are you guys okay with that?
I think that's a good approach.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we vote on that? Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to vote on that.
I know, I absolutely hate to sit here and say, oh, oppose it, but I don't know what to,
All right, but I'll tell
Send
them.
you
I'll tell
there
them
to oppose.
If they won't come in to see you and explain it, then we're going to oppose it.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, all
So we'll
right.
make a motion on that.
Suzanne, you wanted to make a comment. Can you come up to the microphone? And again, we all know who you are, but if you could state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Suzanne Rocky, 160 Diamond Rock. I'm familiar with this house, and I don't know if you know, but right across the street is a home that has 4 units in it, so it's kind of like in the same area. But I just wanted to let you know that.
Across which street?
Across on State Road.
Okay,
Right
yeah.
across on the other side of the
Mhm.
road.
Yep.
There's a house that has 2 doors, and,
Yep.
and it's top and bottom are
And it's
apartments.
painted all gingerbread and it looks really pretty.
I think it's a brick house. It's a brick.
Oh, okay, that's not the one I'm thinking of then,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a brick house. It has 2 doors, and it was just recently sold, but that has 4 units in it.
Okay.
But 7 units seems excessive, especially it's 4,200 square foot, so that makes it, what, 600 square foot per unit. you know, and then you lose space as you're dividing it, so it won't even be that much. So I think it's a little excessive. But there is multi-family dwelling right across the street, so
Okay,
I wanted to let you know.
thank you. All right, you have your marching orders?
Is there a motion?
Do you need a motion? I think we need to vote.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to send Bill to oppose the application of 1420 State Road.
I'll second that.
Okay, but
Second.
in connection with that, I'm directed to contact the applicant and ask if they'll postpone the hearing to come to make a presentation to the board, in which case you may change that direction if you're satisfied that you don't wish to oppose it.
That.
Yes.
I'm sure Lori got all of that.
Yes.
Tina, you got all that, didn't you? How's your shorthand?
That's why we have video.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, that emotion is amended to do
Okay,
that.
and
You were first, you were second?
I seconded that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Number 3, Polig Reeves property, the upcoming public meeting dates for plan review. The Sedgley Farm subdivision submission and East Phillip Drive subdivision submission. Number 1, the Planning Commission meeting, if needed, is Wednesday, November 16th at 7:30 p.m. Number 2 is the Environmental Advisory Council meeting, if needed, Tuesday, November 22nd at 7 p.m. And number 3, the Board of Supervisors meeting, Wednesday, December 7th at 7:30 p.m.
I think the planning commission meeting was confirmed as needed.
At this,
Kurt's here.
as far as I'm aware, it will be on
Okay.
their agenda,
Yeah, to
but
just- to
Yeah.
clarify.
Okay.
And I think the EAC too? Or did they have follow-up they needed to do?
EAC just recently completed their review letter and provided it to
then
the developer,
great.
so I'm assuming that it will
not.
be. But I do not have confirmation yet whether or not Poling will be attending that meeting, but I
Okay.
would assume that, based on the other meeting attendance.
I was just making the note because they said if needed on the agenda, so.
It's giving us an out, yeah.
Okay,
In
great.
Okay.
case anything
Well,
changes.
just-
So if-
Indications point to yes, but
Yeah,
if needed.
correct.
Okay,
That's
if,
great.
either way, if it's yes or no, will you update the website with whether it's confirmed or not? Or should everyone just look at the agendas?
Look at the agendas, definitely, but
Okay.
we will, once confirmed, we will post it on the website.
Okay.
The meeting dates.
I have a question on that. There were some claims made regarding engineer, or some things that were vague regarding the engineering, and as well as legal comments that were made. Do we communicate where our position is to the planning commission, or how do we proceed with all how we interpret those statements?
There are things going on that I don't want to talk about here in terms of raising legal questions and legal issues. In terms of communicating with the Planning Commission, they asked for a history of it, and I'm not sure the best way to approach that. I mean, maybe we can talk about this offline in
All right.
terms of how to provide them with the information they
Yeah.
need.
As far as the engineering findings, is
If you
that
can
something we
announce
could
that.
talk about here, or is that also?
Well, the engineering, we listed everything in the 2 letters that we provided to the applicant, and in the meeting, in the Planning Commission meeting, I discussed certain points of concern, although there were plenty of other comments that weren't addressed. The applicant has the opportunity to come up and talk about some of the things I've already spoken about, or if they want to address some specific comments that I did not label as a big, like something that I would assume to be a will comply. They haven't indicated to me if they were planning to come to the Planning Commission meeting, but I know that we did adjourn the meeting at around 10:30, and there might be more public comment, and/or the applicant might want to explain their positions further.
Okay.
Paul, my apologies if this question is ignorant, but I've been traveling a lot recently for work. But the letters that you have issued to the applicant, are they available for public review? Are they posted on our website or available in any way if the public was to understand the current engineering analysis the township has done on this plan, or are they not? Are they confidential?
They were posted on the website prior to the planning commission meeting, so they are available publicly. The plans have also
Great,
been
thank you,
available
Lori.
to the public.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other comments? Any comments from the public? Come on up to the microphone. If you could say your name and your address for the record.
Maria Becker, 124 Waverly Circle. I haven't been to one of these meetings since, I guess, 2019. So I just found out that this information might be on the website, but could you just tell me, I live right on the other side of the reservoir, and is this plan going through? Are they going to be building?
I don't know
That's
that
not
we're there
something that we
yet.
can answer yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We're not there yet.
Because
It's
we're
being reviewed.
okay. The last time I know there was a stop, they weren't able to do it, but that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight.
The previous applications were under the planned residential development ordinance, which has since been repealed. Those were the denser lots with the 94 homes.
Yeah.
This is, they're bringing back their quote unquote by right plans, and that's what's being reviewed right now. Those are the ones from 2006.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's what's being reviewed right now.
That had like 84.
51, I think.
Okay.
51 new homes.
51
and a few existing.
large lots, singles, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, like 35,000 square foot lots with single family homes on them, and I think
So
that's.
is this kind of like it started over again and then?
They've restarted the process that they were in the middle of when the planned residential development ordinance was developed back in
Okay.
2000.
It was passed
Between
in 13.
2000, between 2008 and 2013, and then.
All right. So my neighborhood is, what's the best thing for our neighbors to do to get involved in this? Because they don't agree with this development. So what can we do to show, to let you know that we're not for this? I mean, do they need to come to this meeting? Because I came here to get information for them, and what can I do?
I would talk to Bill.
We can't give you legal advice, we really.
No.
This is a 17-year project.
Yes, but so should
Very
I,
complex.
should I have my neighbors come to these meetings? Like, what's the best thing? What?
The best way to get information on what's currently going on the plans would be, yes, to come to the public meetings when it's
Okay.
advertised on the agendas.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I just.
Bill, do you have the ability to give her some advice as to who would be considered to be a party if there was a hearing? What the standards are for that, or not?
Well,
There's no.
yeah, I don't want to start down that road,
But just as
This is-
community members, what can we do?
Absolutely.
I mean,
The-
is
the
this the
public-
first step?
And we're all here, get your contact information.
Yeah, you can attend meetings.
All right, thank you.
Talk to Claudia afterwards in the orange shirt. Okay. Any other comment or questions? Okay, moving on. Additional business. Discussion on agenda items for upcoming workshop meetings.
I do not have anything. We were tentatively holding the November workshop if we needed an additional meeting for the budget. I do not have anything planned at this point. So unless the board has anything specific that they'd like to discuss at the November workshop, we can tentatively plan to cancel it. And if anything arises between now and then, I'll let you know. But we're not going to have anything. The next big things we're going to do are the December meeting.
And when would wouldn't that be Thanksgiving week anyway?
It's the
no,
week before.
Erase it out of my calendar.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
same week as the planning
Yeah.
commission, so it's the
It's the 17th.
I believe, yeah.
All right. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss at our workshop meeting?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, then I say we cancel it.
No.
Great.
Are you okay with canceling it, Danielle?
I am okay with canceling it.
Okay, fabulous. All right, let me remove that from my calendar.
And we do not have a December workshop meeting.
Correct.
So our next workshop meeting would happen in January after
January.
reorg.
Okay. All right. So I did want to make an announcement that we will be holding an executive session on November 8th. It will be a virtual executive session. It will not be in person. What's that time?
10 o'clock?
What? I know I don't have to, but I just want to remind our board members. 12 o'clock.
I thought it was at noon.
Yes, it's at 12 o'clock. It's at noon.
Okay.
12 o'clock.
Correct, 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's to discuss litigation.
Litigation, yes. Sorry about that. All right. Announcements for November. The Schuylkill Township Police Association will be hosting a coat drive for local families in need from Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 to Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Please see the Township website closer to the event for more details. From Tuesday, November 1st to Wednesday, November 30th, the Schuylkill Township Police will also be running another drive for the local homeless shelter in downtown Phoenixville. A list of needed items will be available on the Police Association Facebook page. A friendly reminder, Schuylkill Township does not do residential leaf pickup. The road department does annual storm inlet and drain cleanup, so you may see a vacuum truck around the town, but they will not pick up your leaf piles. Please keep them in your yard and off the street. You can take your leaves to the compost yard at 335 Paulings Road. Rick or Tom, would either one of you care to talk about fire department stuff that's going on? I know breakfast is happening this Saturday from 7 to 11 at the main station, and I'm going to be there.
Soup sale the 19th.
The soup sale is on the 19th. What time?
It's 9 to noon, but they want you to order before the 13th, and you can do that online or in person in social.
Okay, Sean, did you hear that?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
The soup sale is on the 19th from 9 to noon, but the association would appreciate if you would order it ahead of time by the 13th, and that you will be able to pick it up on the 19th. Okay. Anything else from the fire department?
There's a lot that you want to hear.
Okay. On that note, anybody else have any other announcements? Public comment. Do we have any comments from the public at the moment? No? All these beautiful faces and no one wants to say anything. Okay. Yes, go Phillies. Does anybody have a score?
Martha, I would just add that.
I'm sorry, Danielle. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I would just add that after the fire department breakfast, everyone should go down to Phoenixville for the 5th annual bed races this weekend.
Okay.
Make
All right.
contributions to Ann's
Thank
heart.
you. I will. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you for getting rid of that.